From WBGO, this is Newark Today, your monthly look at what's happening in and around New Jersey's largest city. And now, here's your host, Michael Hill.
Welcome once again to Newark Today on WBGO. I'm Michael Hill. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Mayor Baraka, the mayor of Newark, is in the studio with us this evening. Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Good evening.
We are going to be talking about a lot to do with the city. Plus, we'll be talking about an art exhibit at Rutgers University dealing with incarcerated people going through the COVID-19 pandemic a few years ago. And we'll be talking about the health of Black men as well with the program over at Rutgers Newark that's underway right now. Dr. Mark Gluck there leading the charge and focusing on Black men's health. Mr. Mayor, let's go ahead and jump right into this because we have so much to talk about here. I'm interested. This is day 16 of the government shutdown, now in its third week. What impact have you detected it's having on Newark at all?
Well, I mean, just to, process and get things done, whether you're talking about grants that we're waiting for, through Invest Newark, or monies that we need on the city side that we can't get, or just really doing government business, whether you're talking about Medicaid or Social Security or those kinds of things, makes it difficult for those things to happen. People's health care, people's lives are on hold while this thing happens and plays itself out.
And the big fight, of course, from the Democrats' perspective is over health insurance and making sure that people can afford health insurance beyond late next year. And if there's no assurance there, and even if families understand making $100,000, you'd be wanting paying another $25,000 for insurance and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, this is completely out of hand. The insurance and healthcare system in America is broken. It hasn't worked for a very long time. There have been a few people who've said that, and now it is becoming more and more apparent to most people as healthcare costs keep rising arbitrarily. And it does seem there's no end in sight. And the Democrats are right to stand up. It's probably the first thing they've done in a very long time to push back against what's happening collectively.
The Republicans are saying, well, let's get through this issue and then we'll negotiate the healthcare subsidies. I can tell by the look in your face, you don't trust that, Mr. Mayor.
No, you can't believe these folks. These are the same people who pushed through a bill that has the largest transfer of wealth and probably the history of this country, that takes money out of working people's pockets and lives and gives it to millionaires, billionaires even here. I don't think these people are focused on working families, or focused on the neediest amongst us, that they are really, really focused on making sure that they transfer wealth into the wealthiest hands in this country.
And what about Newark's financial situation? I understand there's some challenging times in Newark because of tax collection, or what's the issue?
No, it's not tax collection. It's nothing that we on the city side have done. And I know people like to paint that narrative, but the reality is our property values in Newark has increased 2 and 3 times more than most places in the state of New Jersey.
That's relatively a good thing, though, isn't it?
It is. The problem is that the state said that Newark is not paying its fair share of taxes based on how the properties are valued. They want us to pay the county the first year $20 million additional dollars. This year they wanted us to pay them over $30 million additional dollars, and next year it'll get bigger until revaluation is done. The problem with that is because when there's no revaluation, the burden of those taxes go on residencies, and people who are homeowners or property owners. The industrial properties are left out of it. Commercial properties are left out of it. And these people have lawyers. When you give them a tax bill, they have lawyers to go to court and battle that. Most working people don't have that. The homeowners in the city don't have the ability to do that, and so they don't win these appeals. And these taxes. So ultimately, what they've said, we've done spot assessments, which shouldn't have happened. And the state took those spot assessments and said, this is what the value of the property is in Newark. And what we argued is that these are anomalies. These are not, the common practice or common thing in the city. They disagreed with that and said that most of the property in Newark, the value has increased. Industrial property has increased tremendously. When I first became mayor, property in the industrial part of the city was selling from anywhere between $800,000 to $1 million. At this point, it's about $3 to $4 million an acre, right? So the values have gone up. My own house, the value has gone up. When I first Bought my house, I had no equity at all. Today, I have almost $300,000 worth of equity.
Wow.
Right. And so they're saying because those values went up, the taxes you're charging people are just too low, and that we have to raise those taxes. They just want us to do it immediately, and we're asking for a little grace. And they didn't want us to have that grace.
How can Newark homeowners, property owners, residential property owners, how could they withstand the kind of tax increase that the state would want Newark to impose?
We couldn't. And, they argue about me borrowing money because I borrowed the money. They didn't give us anything because I knew if they gave us something, they would come and try to take over. We borrowed the money, meaning we have to pay it back. The reality is I didn't have to borrow anything. I could have done what was done before, which is furlough people, lay off police officers, lay off firemen, lay off workers, and raise people's taxes by 20, 30%. And we could have had a balanced budget, and we could have put a budget in like that on time with a 20, 25% tax increase and laying off massive workers and furloughing everybody else. I just thought it was improper and unfair for the residents to be dealt with this way when something happened that was no fault of their own. Right.
But do you think people would understand if you had to take some drastic measures like that, layoffs and so forth, to meet the obligations of the city to do that?
People would say that, but at the end of the day, no. Nobody. I mean, even financially, you can't withstand a 1 year 20-25% tax increase. Nobody has prepared for that in their individual budgets, right? To have your taxes go up $2,000-$3,000 additional dollars is way too much, right? Even the 5% that we're saying now is a lot for people. Saying, oh, you have to pay an additional $600-$700. That's a lot for folks. But you tell them to pay thousands of dollars. That's cost prohibitive. It's unbearable for families.
I remember my dad had a house over on Seymour Avenue in Newark, and he used to complain about the taxes in Newark being $2,000 or $3,000 a year. And I'm like, really? I mean, I know people in Westchester, but 25, 30 years ago, were paying $11,000 a year in property taxes.
Right.
So I was like, Newark is relatively, the tax rate is relatively low.
Oh yeah, in comparison to the rest of the cities in the state, we way low. And that's what they were saying. Like, come on, y'all, they want us to pay more. I mean, the reality is now in this present rate, homeowners are paying more taxes to the county than people who live in places like Milburn, or Livingston, or places like that, because of the imbalance of what's happening. When revaluation happens, the problem is revaluation takes so long. It takes multiple years. Mm-hmm. So it is not going to set into 2027. And when 2027 comes, it'll balance out what people are paying. You split it up between the industry and commercial and residential properties, and it'll balance out. So some people's taxes will go down.
Wow.
Right. Yep. And, in the city, because of revaluation, it will be decreased. But in the meantime, they're going to have to deal with what they have to deal with, and we're trying to make sure that we can, blunt that pain, that sharp force by borrowing the money we borrowed, and we figuring out ways to get it back. Whether selling high value properties that the city own, our negotiations with some of our folks and partners that we know to bring more revenue into the city to be able to deal with this temporarily. We're going to work on that.
We are speaking this evening with Mayor Ras Baraka of Newark, talking about the city's fiscal situation and dealing with the valuation of properties and the state leaning on the city, trying to get the city's homeowners to pay more in property taxes because the value of property, residential property in Newark, has increased, really all across Newark, industrial properties too. If you have a question, or comment, or concern for the mayor, or some ideas, maybe you have an idea for the mayor on how the city can get out of this other than what the mayor is offering tonight. The number to call is 973-297-0941. That's 973-297-0941. So, Mr. Mayor, right now, you're talking about borrowing money, which the city has done.
Right.
You are going to have to raise property taxes. You said 5%?
Right. Yeah, about 5%.
And what else?
I mean, right now, that's it. We're going to, for next year, we're already working on selling high value property that the city owns, things that we own that we're going to sell to bring that one-time revenue in so we could take care of paying down the bills that we now have, and making sure we plug a hole that'll probably be there for next year until reval kicks in 2027. There are some other levers that we have an opportunity to, and buttons we have the opportunity to push. And while we're in the middle of those negotiations, I don't want to really reveal that now, but we do have some opportunities to take care of this issue.
Now, you've had some Republican state senators, Testa and O'Scanlan. O'Scanlan, for instance, is saying that maybe the state should take over the city of Newark, put it in, quote, receivership or something like that.
It's ridiculous.
And Testa from far South Jersey, a potential gubernatorial candidate maybe years from now, has stepped up and said, criticized Newark for what has happened here.
Yeah.
And I know that you have offered a response to that.
But those guys are not new. I mean, every opportunity they get to take a swipe at Newark, they're going to do that. That's in their DNA. Like attack Black people and brown people and working people in cities to justify the billions of dollars that they've given away to millionaires in this state because they think that that's the answer and not taking care of people in these cities. Obviously, the issue that we have, the problem that we have in Newark is a difficult one, but it's also one that shows that Newark is growing, right? That the property value is increasing, that people are moving here, that they're selling property for higher, because that's really what triggered it. Like people are selling their homes for higher than what people anticipate, right? People are selling homes for $1 million in Newark, right? $500,000-$600,000, which drives property taxes up. Sometimes some of that stuff is being driven up artificially because of LLCs are buying properties in certain neighborhoods and selling them at prices higher than they should. But that's the argument we have with the state. So while there are properties that are selling for that high, there are some artificial prices that are happening because of these LLCs, and we ought to be given grace. And because we have reval coming up, we should be able to let us get through this until reval happens, and then we'll be able to pay our fair share. But they obviously didn't want to adhere to that. And when the state was in control of Newark before I came here, they didn't improve our rating. They didn't improve our credit rating. They didn't improve our budget. They didn't really do anything that helped the city whatsoever. I think ultimately what they did was take city contracts and give it to people that they knew, told people, we tell people we can't hire this person, but you can hire the people they say hire, but not hire people you want to hire. So really, it's really control over the levers of city government. So the resources that are here goes to folks that they know, that's always a bad thing. It has really nothing to do with making sure that you manage the budget properly, because you don't need the state to be able to do that. You can have some oversight. You can have people ask questions and look into what you're doing. But to take control of it is really something that has not worked in Newark. From taking over schools to taking over the budgets in cities has not worked.
Yeah, because what you're saying about your criticism of the state taking over the city of Newark for some time is sort of the same thing I heard about the school system. Is that when there were contracts going out to friends and associates of the state,
right? And education didn't improve, right? And the city's bond rating, so this is not a new idea. The state has taken over Newark before, right? Before I came here, the state was in fact in charge of Newark's finances. When I walked into office, the state was in charge of Newark's finances. We got our finances together so the state could leave the city of Newark, and our bond rating actually went up every year, right? And we increased our bond rating, our ability to borrow dollars and borrow money and get the financial health of the city on track. And we can do that again. And the reality is this thing happened not because we overspent or because we did something we weren't supposed to do or because we didn't balance the budget properly. It happened because the state is saying Newark taxpayers do not pay enough taxes by virtue of the fact that their properties are valued at a higher rate, right? We're paying too low. So what they're saying is we're undercharging Newark residents based on the value of their property.
But Newark is becoming and has become a more attractive place to be. You're talking about, and we'll get to this, through the consent decree, crime coming down, and a lot of it has to do with community groups and community organizers participating in public safety,
right?
And it's become a more attractive place because you've got things like, the ribbon was just cut this week on the pillars by Audible, right. And 15,000 square feet. It sounds like a mini mall to a certain extent, but that kind of generation of business is taking place, so it's becoming a more attractive place, and the art scene is what it is.
Yeah, you can go anywhere around the city at this point. The infill housing is going up. You see brand new housing going up in the number blocks in the South Ward and North Ward, all parts of the city. as well as down in the arts and education districts. You go by NJ Pack, you'll see development happening there on the waterfront. NJ Pack is developing, the museum is developing, the library is developing. Everybody is building in our city, so it is becoming more attractive, and the value of the properties will increase because of that, because of those things that I just suggested. The value of properties will increase, and as a result of that, we have to tax people based on that, and you do what's called a revaluation that you're supposed to do every 10 years, and revaluation usually sets that rate in a fair manner so that residences, commercial properties, industrial properties pay commensurate to the value that they have. And industrial properties are way more valuable at this time than residential properties. So they'll take a lot of the brunt of it, but they didn't allow us to wait until that time happened.
What is the pillars? I mentioned that.
Well, the pillars is it is what Audible does. Same thing. We do a reactivation grant. They use money to help new businesses come and build out their business. They subsidize some of the rent for a little while so businesses can go in there. They've built under a theme of wellness. You got maybe 4 Black businesses that are down to 3 that have already opened up. One is about to open up a gaming place with a restaurant. You got a place that does massages and all of that. Another place that sells plants and other kind of things, and another place that sells scents and oils. And it's a beautiful place. I just actually came from down there before I came here. At Pillar, we had what was called a new restaurant, new business crawl. We went to about 10, 15 new businesses downtown. So
what does that say about Newark when those kinds of investments are made and businesses come in and Audible is quarterbacking this and in collaboration with the city? What does that say about Newark?
It means that people believe in the direction that it's going in, that the corporate community believes, that they want to partner, that they see something great happening around Tubman Square. Our ability to attract people, attract rents, attract individuals to our city is good. That we have maybe about 70,000 people a month that are visiting that area now, that number can increase exponentially and put the walking traffic on the street and make those businesses successful at a time when all of the corporations have not moved back downtown full time. So you have a couple that have. And so now these businesses have to be fueled by walking traffic, by people who live down there, by people in the city to come downtown. Has to be fueled by that, where before it was fueled by employees at these businesses.
How influential is it to have a partner like Audible in town that you can point to a certain extent and say, okay, we have a dozen tech companies that have come here. We have now the pillars. How influential is Audible in driving?
Invaluable. I remember I was doing a thing with some students, and one of the students, started questioning, saying, about gentrification, and said Audible. I said, hey, wait a minute, Audible, you can name a couple of people, but Audible is not one of the ones you should be naming. During COVID, Audible gave money to small businesses so they could feed people during COVID, right? This is a company that gave their employees a card, would put money on it so they can shop at local businesses downtown that pay 1 or 2 months of rent so people could begin to live in the city of Newark. And now that are subsidizing, with the help of Aisha Glover, new businesses, primarily women and women-owned Black, brown businesses, to come into the city. We just went to 10 African-American businesses just now before I came here. To visit, bring people there, get the influencers there. A Black man who owns an Italian restaurant, right? Some woman who opened up a Montessori school, a barbershop that has pool tables and places for kids. I mean, it's amazing, the places we went to.
I wonder what the Trump administration hegseth would think of that with such focus on people of color. I'll move on now. Mr. Mayor, there are protests taking place this weekend called No Kings. Yeah. 2,500 protests across the country. Will you be participating in any of those in this area?
I will. There's one that People's Organization for Progress is doing in Newark. I'll be there. I'm going to try to go down to Somerset. They invited me to Somerset. I'm going to go to Montclair because I usually go to that one. It's usually huge up there, and it's very appropriate now as the country celebrates 250 years of its founding coming. It is important for us to talk about what No Kings really means.
What does it mean?
It means that there were people who rejected the idea of a monarchy, who rejected the idea of a king, who fought for things like the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom of press, at a time when we were not fully a democracy, right? where, like Thomas Jefferson said, the war is over, but the revolution just begun, the revolution of American values. And this fight now is proof that democracy is fragile and that it is only promised as long as we keep engaging it.
Are we getting closer to having a king?
Closer to what?
To America having a king.
Oh my God. I think this guy believes he's the king now. I mean, anytime the Supreme Court sanctions everything that you do and you're in control of both houses and you have spent most of your money on ICE and built your own private kind of police force that are going around, kidnapping people off the street or deputizing or federalizing the National Guard from one state and send them to another state. This is really authoritarianism that we're witnessing. I mean, people will say, oh, the boats that are coming from Argentina and Colombia, they blow them up in the middle of the ocean. The problem with that, and though they advertise it as these people are drug dealers, the problem is that nobody really knows that, right? And the difference between the United States and other countries is that we give people due process. And those people should actually be arrested and brought to court to stand trial for their crimes, not killed in the middle of an ocean.
Do you think people understand, though, this not so slippery slope that this country is on? I mean, it's reported daily, it's reported every hour in this country, and you can see what's taking place in this country, and we're getting closer and closer and closer to not just authoritarianism, but
right.
Someone in the White House being and acting and doing and having the courts and everything like a king.
Absolutely. I think there are a lot of people that are beginning to see that and understand that the same way people showed in the civil rights movement, people being beat and dogs sicked on them on national TV, that really sensitized people to what was going on, made them understand and push people towards pushing for a civil rights bill, civil rights act. Same thing is happening as we watch ICE all over the country do what it's doing. People are becoming really, really, really fearful of what's happening and listening to what this president says and what Pete Hegseth says and what all of these people, every time they get a chance, J.D. Vance, they get on TV and say, it's so appalling and so shocking that, they would call for the removal of journalists, call for the removal of comedians, all of these things that are happening. People can't believe what's taking place. And as long as we articulate it in the way that it should be articulated, people will get clarity soon. And when that day happens, there's nothing else that anybody could do to stop what people responding or standing up against this thing.
I'm going to talk, Mr. Mayor, now, switch gears here about the Newark consent decree.
Right.
And it seems like it's in its final stages. Judge Madeline Cox-Orleo, I hope I got her name right, said that she heard in court a resounding theme that progress has been made. I'm reading from the New York Times here. I have great hopes that the good work will continue, she added, and that she's now taking suggestions and information from the public over the next 2 weeks, and I think we're at the end of that 2 weeks now, just about. And she may sign off to lift Newark out of the consent decree. But before we get there, what's changed in Newark?
Well, many things. We've written half a dozen new policies, from stop and frisk to excessive force, even policies that deal with discrimination. People who are behaving in a discriminate fashion, right, can be penalized, can be removed. Different things that didn't exist no more. Training, additional 20, 30, 40 hours of training for police officers, every police officer on these things, these new policies that we have here, right? Even freedom of speech policy that I don't think exists anywhere else, like that governs how they behave when people are talking in public places or talking to them on the street saying things they don't like, right? That kind of training is important. The amount of suits that we got because the police have mishandled people are down precipitously, right? Just the behavior of our police department is completely changed. And I think a lot is the consent decree, but it is also because their relationship with, I believe, the community. Office of Violence Prevention has begun to change the discussion, the culture of what's happening in the police department. And they ought to get some credit as well. And you're right, there are a few things that we still have to work on. We still have to digitize some of this stuff that has not been digitized, use technology to be able to track and follow police behavior and complaints. We definitely need to do that. And we have a lot more work to do in terms of internal affairs and writing reports, right? Those are things that if that was at the beginning, I would be happy. I grew up in Newark. I know it's a long way from writing reports, right? Our problem wasn't the police didn't write the reports correctly. You know, our problem was a lot different than that. And I'm just grateful that we've been able to make this journey.
And the things that you're talking about that still need to be done, is there money to do those things? Because when you start talking about the technology, you're talking about dollars.
I mean, it is dollars. And so what we have to do is some of those things have to happen gradually, right? And then we have to fight to find grants to help us with these things. But ultimately, like I told the people, I said, ultimately, the real monitor are the civilians, the citizens of this city. You're the real monitor of the police department, you know, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to set up, something inside the police department where people get to monitor that. Unlike the Civilian Complaint Review Board, their job is just to make sure that the tenets of the consent decree are still being carried out. And that we're still moving towards the things that we need to move towards.
I have not heard either one of the gubernatorial candidates for the two major political parties say that they would beef up the Civilian Complaint Review Board by giving it subpoena powers. If anything, I've heard just the opposite.
Right. No, you're absolutely correct. And that's a struggle we still have to fight. Like these are things we're still going to push for, and what I can trust is that me and other folks around this state are going to continue to fight until we get CCRB with subpoena power. That, amongst other things, that we still going to need, no matter who's the governor, because if one person is the governor, it'd be harder to get than if the other person was the governor.
I wonder who.
Yeah.
Now, I want to read another passage here from the New York Times. This is a quote from Larry Hamm, chairman of the People's Organization for Progress. And he says in this article, the consent decree did not end police brutality.
He's right. Ultimately, it's just like all of the work that we've done in the city to reduce violence and crime. But people still get murdered in the city of Newark. They just not get murdered at the same rate that they were. And so police brutality will definitely take place, just not at the same rate and not as arbitrary and wild as it has been. And that is the case because the systems still exist, right? The system of poverty and white supremacy, those kinds of things for the police and for where we are in terms of violence and crime, those things exist. When you start eradicating the social determinants that cause these things, then you can say that this won't happen anymore. What we're doing is reactionary. We are reacting to what's happening and putting guardrails in place so that we can save as many people as we possibly can. But ultimately, you're always going to have police officers that do beyond what they should do. Like there'll be officers that'll be racist. There'll be officers that'll be abusive, and as long as we respond to them and don't allow them to get away with that and they are penalized and punished, maybe it'll prevent other officers from doing the same thing. King said, legislation won't stop you. Legislation won't make you love me, but it can stop you from lynching me.
Right.
And that's the point.
How much is this going to cost Newark, the consent decree?
The consent decree cost us a lot of money. We paid about $2 million a year to the monitor for over a 10-year period.
Wow. And
that doesn't count all of the overtime we had to pay police officers in order for them to go to training and the trainings we had to pay. So we paid millions and millions of dollars for this consent decree.
Mr. Mayor, 30 seconds left here. For someone who would say that consent decrees don't work, they don't reform police departments, they don't produce better results, what do you say?
Well, I think Newark is the living proof that they need to come see what's happening in Newark and see the consent decree does in fact work. Or maybe they just need our monitor. Peter Harvey.
Excuse me, Peter Harvey. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for taking time for this.
Thank you,
we appreciate it once again.
Yeah.
And thank you all once again for listening. We have more to come up here on WBGO's Newark Today.